Over that other CIA leak, the one the White House wishes never happened, the NSA domestic spy scandal, a new report explaining how the National Security Agency may have been able to obtain phone records and other personal data of millions of Americans while still giving the telephone companies themselves what a previous administration used to call plausible deniability. The solution? Buying all that information from a third party, your tax dollars in action. Business Week magazine reporting that the Bush administration is spending tens of millions of dollars every year to buy commercial databases, patronizing a small group of companies that specialize in tracking the finances, phone numbers, biographical information of millions of us. And it may all be perfectly legal. The Privacy Act restricting what the government does with such information only when it was the entity collecting it. For more on this latest development in an already complicated story, I'm joined now by Mark Zaid, an attorney who specializes in national security cases and has in fact represented more than a dozen intelligence officers in clearance cases. Thank you for your time, sir.
Good evening, Keith.
Is this in fact how two of the big phone companies might have been able to get away with responding to that USA Today story about them supplying this information to the government by denying the stories, demanding retractions? And is it just semantics, or is there substance here?
Well, it may very well be. I don't think a lot of people realize how much outsourcing even the major companies do to smaller companies that handle a lot of their business. And the government does the same. And the government, in fact, for example, the Defense Department has been buying data in a lot of the data mining endeavors that it's been doing. And most of the time, as long as it doesn't know where the information is coming from, it feels a lot of the legal restrictions or limitations are lifted. And entities and subcontractors, defense contractors, are going around and purchasing that data and then filtering it to the government. There's also the issue that there are statutes and executive orders, most likely, that allow federal agencies to deny, essentially lie to the public and to courts that, in fact, certain classified data exists. And it may very well be that they've extended that type of ability to some of the private contractors.
This claim, what's your viewpoint on the Privacy Act and the contention of the administration that this is as legal as it claims it is?
Well, the Privacy Act is one of the most convoluted and confusing statutes, 30 years old, written in the days when a lot of these problems came up in post-Watergate with spying and snooping and IRS involvement, etc. The problem is that the thing is chock full of amendments and exceptions to the exceptions, and it's almost impossible to figure out at times what it prevents. And a lot of the exceptions deal with national security and law enforcement. And obviously, that's exactly where this story falls.
For the sake of argument in this case here, let's say that the collection of this data is perfectly legal. If that's the case, why not go to the Secret Intelligence Court for permission then? Why not go to FISA? And if it's all true, why, as it was reported, why would the government have directly approached one of the other major phone carriers, Quest?
Well, I think that's a $64,000 question. To me, the concerns that are abounding from this story is not as much the very specifics of the NSA programs, but it's where this administration is incrementally taking itself. It feels that over the last 30 years, the presidential office has lost power, and it's trying to re-grab that back. I think in many ways the NSA issue and circumventing the FISA court has nothing to do with whether or not the NSA can do this. If it had gone to FISA, no doubt it would have been given permission. But the administration wants it to be known to both the judiciary and the legislature that it has the authority to grant this type of access. The question is going to be, this administration thinks it's as invulnerable as Superman, and what type of kryptonite, essentially, if you want to make a little light of it, is going to come up that's actually going to bring down some of the illegalities, if that's what it is, that have been transpiring. I'm always reminded, and this is what concerns me, the story or the poem that came out of the Holocaust where the individual said, you know, they came for the trade unionists, I didn't say anything because I'm not a trade unionist. Then they came for the gypsies, I didn't say anything, I'm not a gypsy. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to say anything. And that's the type of slippery slope that this type of action, like the NSA spying scandal, is bringing about, that the public really needs to look at.
First it was the international calls, then the domestic calls, and then it'll be conversations. Mark Zaid, an attorney who knows national security law backwards and forwards. Great thanks for your time, sir.
Anytime, Keith.